we begin with Lucas Tomlinson live with more from the White House. Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly and Todd. Let's start with some history this morning. Since 1992, whenever one party has controlled the White House and both chambers of Congress, that party has not kept control of all three after the midterm elections, and President Trump says the GOP needs to buck that trend or else.
So together we had 12 months of unprecedented success in 2025, and now we're going to make history and break records with the epic midterm victory that we're going to pull off. It just doesn't seem to happen for people that win the presidency. It's an amazing phenomenon. You know, you win the presidency, and we sure as hell are having a successful presidency. I will say that. You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
President Trump briefing lawmakers at the Trump Kennedy Center in Washington at the GOP retreat. President Trump hoping the daring raid by U.S. forces in Venezuela to grab Nicolas Maduro and his wife could lead to unleashing oil from the country with the largest reserves in the world. The president posting, I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality, sanctioned oil to the United States of America. The president says the oil is not a gift, but will be sold at market price and controlled by the U.S. to help the people of Venezuela. The president says he's putting Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute the plan. And if all goes accordingly, President Trump says the Venezuelan oil will be shipped to the United States. This will be a big test for the new leader of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, if this deal is pulled off, guys.
We shall see. All right, Lucas Tomlinson live for us in Washington. Lucas, thank you. Let's bring in former Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for coming on with us. So this announcement that the Venezuelan government is going to hand over 30 to 50 million barrels of oil, I mean, it is an indication that right now the interim president is responding to President Trump's demand. So with that being said, how significant do you think this is when it comes to the direction all of this is going?
Well, I think it's very significant. I mean, it opens up again the Venezuelan market to U.S. refiners. We have to keep in mind that much of this oil, this is heavy, sour crude oil. It's a very specialized fuel in our system today. A lot of the refineries in the Houston area, in the Louisiana area, are designed to refine that type of fuel. So the president opening this up again to U.S. refiners, I think is very big news. And, you know, I think they're excited about this. I think the president is absolutely correct to make this oil available to those refiners. I think the U.S. consumers are going to benefit over the long run because of these decisions.
How? Walk us through the numbers. Like, what does 30 to 50 million barrels of oil mean to the U.S. consumer?
Well, I mean, it's not a lot when you think about it. I mean, in the vacuum of 30 to 50 million barrels, it sounds like a lot of oil. But the world consumes about 100 million barrels a day, perhaps as much as 102 or 103. In the United States alone, we consume about 19 million barrels per day. So this doesn't, you know, do a lot for us. It's about 2 to maybe 3 days worth of supply. But it's the signal that it sends. It's the fact that Venezuela could potentially be open for business again. That's a really big deal. And I think the president's moving in the right direction on that score.
And when it comes to potentially being open for business again, the current Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, man, he's got a big job on his hands today because he's going to be meeting with energy executives to try and convince them to invest in the Venezuelan oil industry. And right now we're hearing that there is a lot of hesitation among these executives just because of how uncertain the situation is. So what do you think is going to happen there? Do you think that these executives could turn the Trump administration down?
Well, I don't know if they'll turn them down. I mean, it's an enormous opportunity for them to get back into the Venezuelan market. But look, Mike Wirth is the CEO of Chevron. They've been there a long time. They have very good operations there. Darren Woods, the CEO of Exxon. Ryan Lance, the CEO of ConocoPhillips. These are people who have known Venezuela and known Venezuela markets for a very, very long time. So they're going to put some pretty sharp pencils to any investments they might make there. And they're looking at a number of different things. Yes, they're looking at the reserves and the amount of oil that might be available, but they're also looking at the infrastructure within the country. Can we get that oil to the markets in which it can be sold? And the infrastructure in Venezuela is dilapidated. It has not been maintained. PDVSA has not done a good job of maintaining its infrastructure within the country itself. And you have other issues like security. How do you protect your workers there? These are very important questions that these CEOs are going to be asking themselves because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to ensure that they have good answers to those questions.
Trump's a deal maker. We know that. He wants this done. Do you anticipate the White House offering incentives, tax breaks, whatever, to make this a reality to these energy companies?
Yeah. I don't know that. I mean, I assume that that's going to be part of the equation. There are many things available to these companies, I should say, in the U.S. tax law as well as the international tax law today available to them. I don't know what else they might offer. I think what they're going to be looking for is just simply security. I mean, it's the basic things you have to think about when you're in a country like Venezuela, especially one that's been through the troubles that they have had over the course of the last 20 to 25 years. Can we protect our workers? Can we extract the investments that we make there? Those are very fundamental questions, and I think that's what is going to be on the table when Chris Wright sits down with these CEOs today and tomorrow.
Yeah. Mr. Secretary, the other major news item that developed overnight is the fact that the Trump administration told the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, that the only way that you'll be able to pump more oil in Venezuela is if you kick all the adversaries out of your country, China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, and exclusively do business with the United States. I mean, that is a complete shakeup of world order, and it could ultimately be what all of this was about to begin with. Do you think that will ultimately come to pass?
Well, I think it might, and I think that's really the important point here. It's not so much the amount of oil, 30 to 50 million barrels. Yes, that's important. Those are very important signals. But I think what the president really has in mind here is the larger geopolitical strategy. If we can put together an allied force with the United States, with Venezuela, with Brazil, with Guyana, where large reserves have been found over the last few years, then it fundamentally changes the geopolitics of energy and the geopolitics and foreign policy of the United States. Perhaps you can put together a pact that is a more effective pact against a more aggressive China. Those are the types of things I think the president is thinking about, and he's absolutely right to think about them.
Yeah, what a moment in time, and it feels like we could be at the start of a new chapter, so we thank you so much for joining us to discuss it with us. Former Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette. We appreciate it very much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.